Okay, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Damien Sass. I'm a Sustainable Development Officer at the UN Office of the High Representative for the Least Developed Countries, Landlocked Developing Countries, and Small Island Developing States, OHRLLS for short. It's a real pleasure to welcome you to this webinar on mobilizing partnerships and financing for renewable energy in small island developing states. It's been co-organized by my office, OHRLS, and our friends at the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. This session is part of our webinar series that's leading up to the SIDS Global Business Network Forum in the Maldives in 2026, specifically August of next year. And it's being held on the margins of the Global Multi-Stakeholder SIDS Partnership Dialogue, which is happening later this morning here in New York. If you're interested in following that dialogue, it will be live streamed on UN Web TV. That's webtv.un.org, and it's starting at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So together, these platforms all aim to turn the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for SIDS, or ABAS, into concrete action and investments, as well as impact on the ground. Island nations have already made very real strides in renewables, from microgrids to storage, solar, wind, as well as other emerging technologies. But we know that progress is uneven. And the real challenge, of course, is closing the gap between ambition and implementation. So we hope that this webinar is going to be practical. We want to unpack some of the partnership models that work for island nations. We want to highlight some of the financing instruments that are being accessed. And also we want to explore emerging technologies that island nations can take up. Before we move into the panel discussion, we'll start with a scene-setting presentation to ground us in some of the latest trends and opportunities across islands. Just a few housekeeping points. The session is being recorded, and the recording will go onto our office's YouTube channel, so you can rewatch or share with others. Please use the Q&A box for questions. We'll have a dedicated segment right towards the end, but feel free to post any questions that you have throughout. That way, when we get to the Q&A segment, hopefully we'll have some of your questions there ready and waiting for the speakers. So with that, it's my pleasure now to introduce our scene-setting speaker, Ms. Nadia Mohammed. She's a program officer at the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA. As I mentioned, they're our partner and co-organizer for this webinar. Nadia will share an overview of where SIDS stand on the renewable energy transition, as well as what that means in terms of partnerships and finance going forward. So Nadia, the floor is yours.
Screen is on? Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Thanks, Damien, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'll kick off by maybe starting with the vulnerability of SIDS, which most of us may be aware of, noting that our geographical location, being small economies, having narrow resource bases, and being subject to increasingly severe weather events, as well as exposure to fossil fuel volatility, compounding issues that add pressure to SIDS development as well as debt. And we see this impact every year. For example, just this year, Hurricane Melissa would have caused 8.8 billion estimated in damage. And that equates to about 41% of their GDP for 2024. And that's really showing how one shock can upend an entire economy, as well as why SIDS need a vulnerability measure that captures these realities when it comes to support, when it comes to debt relief, and when it comes to financing. So the development of a multidimensional vulnerability index has been a call from SIDS. And it really helps to capture some of the things that SIDS have been saying for many years. One, that they have the most vulnerable economies in the world. Two, that their vulnerabilities range in terms of economic, environmental, as well as structural vulnerabilities. And that also includes differences not only across regions, but even within regions. And three, it shows that development finance will need to be tailored to SIDS and aligned with unique realities rather than treating SIDS as a uniform group. And given these realities, we've seen that SIDS have consistently placed energy at the center of their development agendas. We've seen this from the Samoa Pathway to the recently adopted Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for SIDS, or the ABAS. Specifically, the ABAS calls for addressing structural barriers, as well as SIDS-specific technologies, access and mobilizing finance, as well as institutional capacity. And these priorities align with the SIDS Lighthouses Initiative, which is a global partnership framework coordinated by IRENA and aims to accelerate SIDS energy transition across 11 priority areas. A key focus for us would be to reinforce our partner engagement and ensure alignment with ABAS. And we are pleased to be co-organizers of this event. Looking ahead, it will be important for us to keep track on the monitoring and evaluation of the ABAS implementation. And this is necessary to ensure that we track progress, but we also direct support to where it's needed most. And IRENA is already a custodian and co-custodian of two of the proposed indicators under the ABAS M&E framework. We track the RE install capacity and the international financial flows, and we will also be tracking through the SIDS LHI M&E framework broader energy transition indicators, which will complement these efforts for tracking progress. And when we look at the installed capacity, it's encouraging. By 2024, SIDS reached about 9.4 gigawatts, and that's a year-on-year steady growth, almost tripling capacity since 2014. A lot of the momentum would have picked up from 2018, driven mostly by solar energy. Wind and bioenergy have also been expanding at a gradual pace, and hydropower continues to be a stable source for countries that have this resource available to them, and marine and geothermal is quite limited at this stage. When we look at the electricity access rate, we're reminded about the diversity within regions and across regions, noting that many countries still have underserved communities. So, for example, Haiti is still below 50% electricity access. Guinea is around 37%, and Papua New Guinea is almost at 19%. So we see the transition is moving in the right direction. However, we need to ensure that this progress reaches all communities.
Indeed.
And then when we break down by regions and by technology, we can see that solar is the fastest growing technology with the greatest share across all the regions, but the share varies. It's most dominant in the ACE region, followed by the Caribbean, which has a more balanced mix. And in the Pacific, solar is actually secondary to hydropower. Bioenergy still plays an important role in the Caribbean and ACE, while wind contributes modestly overall, but more present in the Caribbean. And so the regional picture is quite diverse. Again, reinforcing the need for tailored approaches, noting that a one-size-all approach won't work for SIDS, given the diversity that was mentioned. And SIDS are now submitting their third cycle of NDCs. We see clear renewable energy targets, sectoral measures, as well as stronger ambition in terms of transitioning away from fossil fuels, as well as towards clean cooking. But it can be noted that many of these commitments are conditional. So that highlights the need for increased international support, whether that's financing, capacity building, or technology. And IRENA has been supporting these efforts through cost-effective analysis, review of renewable energy roadmaps, project facilitation, data and statistics support, rooftop solar resource assessment, as well as legislative and regulatory framework review. And as more renewables come online, there's going to be a need for electricity planning approaches to be reconsidered, or looking into the grids to make them stronger, more resilient. And so IRENA has developed a grid modernization toolkit for SIDS, and that would be available on our website in January. And then when we look at what SIDS are aiming for, we can see that the financing gap becomes clearer in terms of meeting their NDC targets. IRENA's analysis shows that 63% of the additional renewable energy capacity that SIDS have committed to their NDCs is conditional. And to deliver this, we're looking at a minimum of $6.1 billion by 2035, and about 4.2 billion depends on international financing. And then when we look on the right at the global finance landscape, we can see why SIDS are struggling to get support that they need. On the graph on the right, we can see that yes, global energy finance reached $30.5 billion, and that's positive, but it's still far below what is actually needed. And specifically, the finance is not flowing to the countries that need it the most, such as SIDS and LDCs. We noted in our IRENA analysis that 80% of public clean energy finance goes to only 29 countries, which means that SIDS as well as LDCs are receiving only a small fraction of this. And then there's also the issue of what kind of financing is available or being provided. So from the graph, we're seeing that more of the public support is coming from loans, and that grants and equity is limited, and that's actually what will help to support SIDS in the early stage project preparation and help reduce the cost of capital, which is what they really need. And then on the left side, we look at domestic private investment that has actually increased. Specifically, Dominican Republic would have received a lot of large-scale solar investment recently, and it is the situation for a larger SIDS economy. But when we look at the broader SIDS, projects are small. We note that transaction costs are also very high, and technical capacity is also constrained. So these are the realities that we hear even within our own experience with IRENA's project facilitation support through the Climate Investment Platform, as well as the Energy Transition Accelerator Platform. And I've just highlighted a few of the common trends that we would have seen from our work. We've seen that good ideas are struggling to move forward because some key pieces are missing. So, for example, feasibility studies, EIAs, permits, grid studies. There's also a need for clear and consistent PPAs or procurement processes, projects that are large enough to attract private investors, financing strategies that move beyond grants, as well as ways to reduce the very high perceived risks of some projects and SIDS. And so moving into the panel discussion, I've just highlighted some of the key areas within the ABAS that the colleagues on the panel will be speaking to, including what are the capacity needs that need to be strengthened, to some of the practical financing approaches and project approaches that have worked to help manage risk, drive down costs, and improve access to finance and investment on the ground. So with that, I hand back to Damien to take us through the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for that excellent overview and for highlighting both the progress that's being made, which is very significant in many ways, but also the remaining gaps in the SIDS energy transition. Just very quick sort of remarks. I think, thanks for highlighting obviously the multidimensional vulnerability index that has been developed, that is sort of tracking where SIDS are making progress, but obviously also where they need more targeted support, as you mentioned, including in sort of financing. Thanks also for sharing your work on the SIDS Lighthouses initiative and the support that's being provided to SIDS there. I think one of the things you mentioned also was this challenge that many SIDS have with the scale of the projects that they have and sort of attracting investments to fund them. And I hope we can get into some of that as well in the panel discussion. But thanks so much for this. There is already a request for your PowerPoint presentation, so we can also hopefully share that with participants as well. So we'll now move into our panel discussion, where we'll go deeper into the issues that Nadia has raised through her presentation. Also, hopefully touching on how we can structure partnerships, how we can make projects bankable, and how to align finance with SIDS' renewable energy ambitions. And we have a fantastic panel with us today. We have Dr. Wayne Archibald, founder and Executive Director of Green Solutions International, SKN Incorporated. We have Ms. Kieran St. Omer. She's a Senior Project Officer and Program Lead for Greening the Financial System at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. We also have Mr. Ben Martin, Head of Facilities at Global OTEC, and Mr. Akram Wahid, Senior Energy Specialist and Project Manager for the ARISE project at the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy of the Maldives. So we'll start with Dr. Wayne Archibald. Wayne, from your vantage point, working directly with projects and especially communities in SIDS, what are the capacities that are currently missing in SIDS to move renewable energy projects from concept to bankable reality, and how can those gaps be quickly addressed? Over to you, Wayne. And I know you have your slides, so I'm going to share them actually from my side.
Okay, should I answer the question directly or should I go to the presentation?
Straight to your presentation, and you can answer the question through it as well, yeah.
Okay, I will do that. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Nadia, for that very detailed and comprehensive presentation. I will make reference to some of the things that you highlighted also in my presentation. So I've already been introduced. I'm the founder of Green Solutions International, SKN Incorporated. It was founded in St. Kitts and Nevis back in 2017 out of a need to really help to build the workforce and do capacity building in St. Kitts and throughout the entire Caribbean. Now, on the next slide, it says our tagline, locally rooted and globally connected. Now, it may sound very simple, but this tagline captures who we are and how we operate.
Can we hear him?
Wayne, if you're there, we can't hear you. So it looks like we've lost Wayne for a bit. I see he's still online, but his screen has gone blank. Wayne, if you can hear us, we're not hearing you or seeing you. Okay, so it looks like we've lost Wayne for hopefully for a moment. But what we can do is we'll try to get him back online. And in the meantime, to keep the program rolling along, we can then move on to our next speaker. And then when Wayne comes back, we'll just have him back with us. Okay, so next, I'll turn now to Ms. Kieran St. Omer from the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. And Kieran brings a critical perspective from the central banking and also regional finance community. And so, Kieran, from your vantage point at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, what are central banks and also more broadly regional green finance facilities doing to hopefully change the risk return equation so that renewable energy in the Caribbean SIDS becomes a mainstream investment opportunity rather than what some may perceive as a niche or a high risk bet. Kieran, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here, Damien and team. And I must thank Ms. Mohammed for her presentation, which really set the tone in terms of the barriers and the issues that we face, especially now that you've mentioned high risk perception. So for us at the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, I always do get that. I tend to try to address it, going to several energy forums and conferences like a central bank. That's what is the central bank doing there? But it also speaks to how critically important that the whole energy transition is for us in the Caribbean region and more so the Eastern Caribbean member states. So what I would definitely say, be it Caribbean, Pacific, the issues are the same, different magnitude, but similar challenges. So my comments here would certainly be applicable to all. At the central bank, we noted that energy transition, the cost, given that we're like 90% reliant in the Caribbean, Eastern Caribbean on fossil fuel, that accounts for almost 450 million average annual spend on fossil fuel imports. What that translates to, it's a very large portion of our regional gross domestic product. And when we speak in terms of trade, this represents like almost 17% or more of our annual trade imports. So it's systemically important in terms of the amount we spend, which also triggers fiscal vulnerabilities amid natural and climate exposures that we increasingly face. So when we look at why the need, what is the motivation for the central bank to get involved, we advise our member states. We tend to also set up interventions to support economic development and financial stability. So one of those means, given our unique positioning as the regulator for the financial sector, and the clarion call globally for mobilization of finance. So we've designed a financing solution that addresses the gaps in the financial system architecture as well as in the energy sector, looking at the barriers. So having done a diagnostic assessment 4 years ago to understand what are the initiatives going on, member states have ambitious targets, and how do we achieve that? What is required to accelerate the transition? So Nadia would have touched on what the growth in renewable energy penetration or capacity over the years as at 2024, 9 gigawatts. So surprising to hear that when we look at some of our SIDS are left behind. And that is quite the situation in the Eastern Caribbean, where we're at 34 megawatts total capacity as part of our energy mix. And over the last couple of years, we've seen member states like Dominica, even St. Kitts, St. Lucia, going into geothermal, given the large potential for renewable energy sources there. Of course, this requires significant capital outlay. It's deemed high risk. There are the energy sector is very nascent in our region, and to sort of address those barriers, including capacity, of course, and mobilizing finance. We've, as a central bank, in partnership with member states, so we've taken a regionally coordinated approach where the central bank, led by the member states, they've come together and we've designed a renewable energy infrastructure financing facility to help mobilize finance and partnership for the renewable energy development in the Eastern Caribbean region. And we've already seen quite a huge impact in terms of where we were, and now at least 3 of the member states have been able to tap into at least 115 million of funding from one of our main funder, the World Bank, who is financing the actual development work, as well as project financing is being provided. So just to touch in terms of what is different, what can we expect, and how this will help mobilize finance and address the risk areas. Given it's a regionally integrated facility, it is not only for enhancing energy security, but to promote the green transition and address fiscal as well as climate resilience. We have taken an economy-wide approach with very strong ownership, as I mentioned, and at the highest level, where the ministers of finance, when we speak of partnerships, this is critical for buying. The ministers of finance in the Eastern Caribbean are also the prime ministers. So they are our highest governing authority on the work regarding this facility. And we have been able to bring a number of innovations and also outline priority projects where we are partnering with the utility companies. And we know in terms of the ownership structures in countries that can vary. And so there's a very a need for a balanced mix of, while we take a regional approach, we must also look at the country specificities to address certain regional or regulatory and issues that we have to take into account to design an appropriate solution. So the facility we've designed caters for that, where we're looking at bringing blended upstream technical assistance that will look at institutional strengthening within the ministries of energy. So at this very moment, the facility became active in November. So at this very moment, we're really staffing project implementation units where we're giving additional capacity and technical expertise directly on the ground at the domestic level to support project development, preparation, and implementation. So the funding for that, we've sourced some grant funding as well as concessional funding able to ensure the readiness of member states to tap into larger pools of funding. We have the technical capacity, which is critical. Nothing will move if there's not capacity on the ground. So beyond financing, we're also addressing the capacity needs of these of our member states. The other key aspect we're also looking at is risk mitigation, which takes me directly to your question. And where we see, in terms of small size, in terms of climate and natural disaster vulnerabilities, how do we improve the investment attractiveness of renewable energy development or projects in the region? So through the facility, we will have project aggregation, and not only aggregation in terms of projects for size, but also in terms of procurement, in terms of aggregation, in terms of regional proposals for mobilizing funding. So we've had quite a bit of success in that, which is where we are. We see that multilateral and international financial institutions, they have a bias towards the regional proposals where, given the context of SIDS, you definitely see the ability to scale up funding and to sort of have a blueprint where we can leverage that to roll out other initiatives, and not just for the energy sector, but we see the way the facility is structured, it can address transport as well, other critical infrastructure assets and sectors to help mobilize funding. So this use case in terms of energy also provides credit guarantees, partial credit guarantees for renewable energy investments that will help mobilize private and commercial credit. Our market in the region, or in many SIDS, nascent, especially the Caribbean. So what we see is, as the market matures, there may be a less need for guarantees. And this is to help investors come in to finance, to bring, increase the flow of funding. And of course, when they understand the mechanics and dynamics of how the system works, we see that the need for guarantees may decrease based on our modeling. The additional thing is insurance, parametric insurance, which is quite important. We've done some surveys with not only developers but also and financiers, but also the financial institutions in terms of what their needs would be and what their key concerns are, and that having such a product or instrument would be very useful. There's none available now for renewable energy investments, large scale. So this is a very welcome development for investors. I will touch on one more thing in terms of we also have within the facility brought in a component for contingency emergency responses, as we see in the case of Melissa and even Beryl last year. If we're constructing a plant, the work will stop immediately. How do we quickly restore not only existing electricity services, but the construction of such projects? So this enables funds to be quickly reallocated. And we see a beautiful example in Jamaica, where the multilaterals have come together and created quite a large package of funding, which will be tremendous in terms of bringing quick help towards Jamaica's recovery. And that is a very encouraging sign, given the nature of the storm that we just experienced in Jamaica. So these are some of the considerations we've taken. Another key thing is grid infrastructure investments. For us, given, as I would have mentioned, the low penetration in terms of renewable energy within our power generation mix, and we've leaned on the lessons learned from other SID or advanced developed nations who have gone before us to develop renewable energy. We have a key critical aspect facing us in the Eastern Caribbean, where our infrastructure, the grids, are almost dated within the next 5 to 10 years, almost 75%, 50 to 75% on average will become dated. So why, the question would be, what really puts an urgency in moving to green energy is why we invest in fossil fuel grids when we need to modernize those grids and ensure that they are ready for variable energy sources such as geothermal, solar, so that, well, not geothermal, solar, so that we can certainly benefit from the green transition. So this is our starting point in terms of countries are getting direct funding envelopes to modernize their grid infrastructure and for renewable energy integration. So these are some of the very important things that the facility has provided for, given the nature of the risks and barriers that our member states in the Eastern Caribbean are facing. Now, I've had a focus on Eastern Caribbean, but what I would say, it's a Caribbean renewable energy infrastructure financing facility. We've started at with the Sub region, and we're rolling out this multi-instrument solution on a phased basis. We have 3 countries we've sourced funding for. We have another 2 in the pipeline who we're developing the pipeline of projects, looking at all projects in terms of what targets they've set, where those projects are, the status, what are the barriers, and how we can improve on developing those concepts and doing the feasibility studies and getting them bankable and taking them not only there, but to commercial close. And that is a very important aspect to that we bring to the table, one stop, and we take a very localized approach where we work directly with the stakeholders. While we have regional coordination happening, we also have that team domestically set up to support stakeholders and to ensure that the work moves along. And as you well know, implementation is something that can seriously impact how fast we progress. So these are some of the areas that the facility saw the gaps. We did the diagnostics. When we look at different types of instruments, we see in time we'll have a pipeline of projects that now what I can zoom on is our member states in the Eastern Caribbean have not tapped into the green finance markets, the international capital markets. There has not been an issuance of any green or sustainable finance instruments. So this will also support additional sources or markets being created within the region as well. So we're looking for, we have quite a few partners that multilateral agencies, regional development partners that we are working along with, collaborating, which is extremely important in terms of avoiding overlap. And to what the facility is doing is bringing financing to accelerate work that is already being done so that we can move at a much faster and quicker pace to get to what we need, the deployment of energy on the ground to drive down costs and to, of course, make it a lot more, our markets more competitive, given that 60% of our revenue, when we speak of private sector and for the Caribbean or Caribbean region, tourism is a major contributor to our economies. For the Eastern Caribbean, it represents 60% of our revenues, and that's it's evident of restaurateurs, businesses, community tourism, where these persons rely on energy or electricity to undertake their businesses. We see an insurgence of technology that will also put significant demand on our energy needs. And one of the key things of our strategy at the central bank, where we have this big push agenda to our economic gross domestic product within the next 5 years. And to do so, we need to be able to power up our economies. So this is where the central bank has taken a keen interest to help move the energy transition along by creating innovative financial instruments to tackle the barriers to accessing finance within those member states. Thank you, Damien. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Kieran. You covered and shared so much there. And just to mention also that regionally coordinated approach that you spoke to, and the regional sort of financing facility that you mentioned, really interesting model. I think not just for the Caribbean, but I would say even an interesting model that other island regions, in the Pacific and the Indian Ocean, I think would be particularly interested in as well. So thank you for sharing that. So I see that we have Wayne back, so which is great. So we'll just switch back and go right back to Wayne. And let me just get your slides back up, Wayne.
All right, thank you very much for that. Let me check. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and see
you. All right, awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that little glitch there a while ago. So good morning again, and I'll go back to the first slide or the second slide where it identifies our tagline: locally rooted, globally connected. I think that's where I got cut off the last time. But the whole essence of this tagline is that it really captures who we are as an organization and how we operate. And we are deeply, in saying locally rooted, it means that we are deeply grounded in the communities in which we operate, in which we train. We understand the local culture, the needs, and the challenges that exist. And our decisions are always informed by on the ground knowledge and real relationships. And I think this is particularly important when you're talking about bringing global solutions to our local markets. So, what it means, as Nadia pointed out earlier, that we don't offer just a one size fits all solution. We tailor what we do with what truly works in each community. And by saying that we are globally connected, it means that we are connected to a broader network where we rely on best practices, ideas, and innovations, right? And we leverage these international perspective, partnerships, and standards in a way to stay agile and always forward looking in a rapidly changing world. So being globally connected, it ensures that our local solutions are strengthened by global insights. So what it means in practice is that we deliver solutions that are locally relevant and competitive globally. I'll go to the next slide. I think that we already understand why we're here and why we decided to choose to do this work, particularly for SIDS, small island developing states, because of the high dependency on fossil fuels. We have some of the highest electricity rates in some islands. It's as high as 52 cents per kilowatt hour. Businesses have a hard time meeting their electricity demands and so forth. And we have an abundance of renewable resources. So for such small populations, I think this is the ideal scenario in order to showcase the potential of renewable energy penetration. And like we just saw in Jamaica, as uh, the last speaker pointed out, we are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. Higher sea level rise, greater severity and frequency of hurricanes. So on the next slide, we have outlined what our mission and our vision is. Basically, for our vision, we are focused on our mission, which is to help countries become 100% sustainable through innovation, education, workforce training, and clean energy development. Next slide. Locally, we have, what I wanted to show is the local impact, the regional impact, and the global impact that we as an organization have been having. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly. Locally, particularly in St. Kitts and Nevis, where we are incorporated, we've established a Caribbean Center of Excellence in Research, Innovation, and Workforce Training with the local college there in St. Kitts. It provides hands-on training where students gain practical skills through advanced labs, real-world scenarios, and at the end of the day, they are able to become certified, which will help to boost local industries, attract investment, and drive economic growth. Now, on the next slide, which shows our regional impact, we plan to take this model and do it all throughout the OECS, right? We have what we call the NAPCEP Caribbean program that's particularly for solar training and certification, where we have an exclusive contract with NAPCEP to basically be the main certifying body and training organization in the Caribbean. And not just solar we look at, but we also look at electric vehicles, we look at areas of climate financing and several other things, areas, environmental impact assessments, and so on. So we created a model in St. Kitts, and now we want to expand that model throughout the rest of the Caribbean so that all of the islands, particularly the OECS countries, can really benefit from the best practices and the training and certification that we have to offer. Now, on the next slide, that talks about our global impact. We are partners with the SIDS Lighthouses initiative, right? So we make sure that our mission, our vision is aligned with the SIDS Lighthouse initiative and also the United Nations program as we recently got our UNFCCC accreditation, right? So that was a very big deal, and we participated in COP in Brazil just a few weeks ago. By collaborating with these international organizations, I think it enhances our credibility as an organization that focuses on workforce development, capacity building, and economic development. So therefore, we can see how, from starting from one small island, how we can really impact the region and the global community at large. So on the next slide, we have several things to talk about the workforce factor and so forth, right? We look at the skilled workforce development, local economic growth, which comes out of that, sustainability in leadership, where we train the workforce and it positions OECS countries and other countries as a leader in clean energy transitions. And it also enhances regional resilience against climate impacts. It has community impacts also. This whole workforce development and capacity building is basically the backbone of any successful clean energy transition. And by being able to equip individuals with internationally recognized certifications and practical skills, then we will empower them to take on roles in the renewable energy industry. And that in itself helps to create the economic opportunities within local communities and also foster a culture of sustainability and innovation. So in the next slide, we look at, I just listed out some of the islands that we're targeting. We started with St. Kitts and Nevis. We're actually having conversations in Grenada right now and also in St. Vincent in order to continue to expand with these centers that we are trying to create around the region. And I'll give a little bit more details about that, but let's go to the next slide. Some of the funding agencies, and they're not all listed here, just a few, that we have been able to have an impact in what we do with, like CDB, IDB, UNDP, OECS. It's not a funding agency, but like the U.S. Virgin Islands Department of Labor. And what's not mentioned here is USAID. When it was a thing, we were part of the Jamaica Energy Resilience Grant that was funded by USAID, that involves helping to create some of the policies that we need to help to move sustainable development forward. There was a workforce development component. There was some solar installation. There were some banking aspects of it that I'm not going to go into right now. But in terms of the workforce development aspect of it, we were able to train over 200 electricians, engineers, technicians from across all of Jamaica. And since then, we've seen an increase in the number of solar companies on the rise and people who are well qualified and certified to install solar systems. More recently, and it's not mentioned here, we are currently involved with a Women in Energy training program in Guyana. This program was funded from the Guyana-Norway Partnership and is managed by the Inter-American Development Bank. The workforce development includes training 50 women from all like 5 different regions of Guyana. In addition to the 5 weeks on the ground technical training that we did, we also had a coaching component where they learned soft skills, career development, entrepreneurship, and they were also placed in apprenticeship program right? So that they can take the practical knowledge that they gained through the training and apply it in the apprenticeship. Now, this program ends in February, and once it ends, then these women know what they will have is all the skills, the certification, and the experience needed to basically uh, go launch into the workforce. So I think a model like that is something that we're trying to improve and trying to replicate in other islands, in other Caribbean countries also, right? So if we move to the next slide, and I'll just get through this real quickly. What these centers of excellence, at least what we're trying to do now, it will serve basically as a research and education center, a technology and economic innovation center, a sustainable technology resource center, and also have model projects, right? So we're looking to cover the whole range of areas needed in order to help these countries become sustainable island states, right? And we'll keep moving forward here. To the next slide. Yes. So in conclusion, right, the vision is to develop a certified workforce for renewable energy and technologies. The impact is to drive economic growth, sustainability, and basically we have to get it right from the start. So here are some things that I think can be done in order to help move the transition much further. First, we call upon these countries and the smaller islands particularly to create policies. I know some policies exist already, but there is some more work to be done that prioritize underrepresented groups for recruitment, training, and provision of jobs, right? That is the whole key, I think, to advancement. Training organizations should offer low cost or free training if funding is available through one of these funding institutions to help prepare underrepresented people to enter the workforce. Different solar energy associations or other renewable energy associations should develop apprenticeship programs with companies that create meaningful work experience for people. And that's basically part of what we've been doing in the Guyana project. Now, employers also need to create an inclusive environment in which women in particular feel comfortable, valued, and respected. And this will allow them to thrive in a workforce and bolster retention, right? Which is another problem that we've been having. I think, I can remember where I saw it, but I think in the Caribbean in all, women make up less than 20% of the renewable energy workforce. And I think that as we push, our Caribbean nations push to achieve, many of us have 2030 targets to generate solar and other forms of renewable energy. The true measure of success will be the extent to which Caribbean nationals are equipped to design their own energy future. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I mean, thank you for sharing that your work. I think, yeah, you really hit on such a critical issue of training the workforce, skills training in particular, especially in terms of ensuring the sustainability of renewable energy projects that are being rolled out in SIDS, and having that local expertise to maintain projects and kind of extend their lifespan, so to speak. So thank you very much for sharing. We're fast running out of time, but nonetheless, I want to now move on to our next speaker, Ben Martin, Head of Facilities at Global OTEC, which is advancing ocean thermal energy conversion as a promising new opportunity as well for island economies. So Ben, what is OTEC, and what is the realistic OTEC potential across SIDS, and in what types of contexts does it make the most sense compared to other technologies? Ben, over to you.
Great, thank you so much. I'll try and keep this a little bit short and go through a little bit quickly. So thank you again for having us here. My name is Ben Martin, Head of Facilities at Global OTEC, and we are going to be talking a little bit about clean energy from the ocean's heat. So simply, to answer one of your questions, OTEC is getting energy from the ocean. What's the problem, though? It's been very well kind of detailed today, but 25 gigawatts is our challenge. We have 10 to 11 gigawatts of diesel power across the SIDS already, but when you take in growing populations, increasing energy demands, AI, transportation, plus all the other islands in this region, that's 25 gigawatts of capacity that we have to find a way to get around. So as anyone who has lived on islands knows, and I've been in small islands in Okinawa and in Japan here for the last 17 years, islands are particularly vulnerable with some of the fewest resources to meet these challenges. However, we also have one good point, where they do tend to have access to one of the largest untapped batteries that we have, which is the ocean. It's a natural cycle that provides us a heat, but also cold. And so from this, it gives us a local resource that we can create our own energy from. And that's done through a system called ocean thermal energy conversion, or as sometimes I've liked to say recently, it's geothermal in the ocean. Similar system overall, but a little bit different power source or heat source. So our facilities use ocean temperature gradients to generate clean baseload power 24/7. So this is a little bit different from wind or solar, where it's intermittent. For OTEC, it's there 24/7, morning, noon, or night. It uses seawater to evaporate a working fluid with a very low boiling point, similar to what you find in an air conditioner. The vapor spins a turbine and produces electricity, just like geothermal, just like nuclear power, or back in the day, steam engines. Cold, deep ocean water then condenses the working fluid back into a liquid so it can be reused again in a continuous closed cycle. So it's relatively simple, it's well known, but application to the ocean is what's new. But it's not that new. So this idea was invented back in the 1800s, and initial research was done. And it wasn't until the 1980s where the oil shocks actually started putting research into this. And we had the first net power produced out in Hawaii. A few days down the road, a few years down the road, now we have additional facilities coming online after the second oil shock in 2008, 2009 in Japan, India, France, Hawaii. It's growing around the world. So where do we come in? With the new technology, taking advantage of all of the best advances over the last decade and a half into a new compact application. So Global OTEC is a group of young and, mostly young team that's mainly both based in the UK. I'm out in Japan as well. We are bringing together technologies from around the world to implement both onshore and offshore applications, and working with local partners around the world to develop projects and identify how we can bring this to people who need it the most as soon as possible. So we had very good success in Sao Tome and Principe, bringing together projects and identifying how this can really lead to additional transitional uses for that island. We were able to identify the next steps and are looking forward to future developments there. We recently also were able to work with Barbados and create new ways forward for them as well. You see Don out in the water. That's our most recent successful project, which is a storm-resistant floating platform that is a scaled-down version of a future ocean thermal energy conversion offshore facility. This is in the waters in just 2 or 3 weeks ago, and is now going to be having its pipeline installed for demonstration going on. And this data will further de-risk and inform future projects going forward. Just last week, we were in addition to Don, our team has had success partnerships with UNIDO and other partners to identify how we de-risk and kind of make this technology viable. So we signed a lease in NELHA, which is in Hawaii. NELHA is the National Energy Laboratory Authority of Hawaii. And so we will bring our first technology there to work with both investors and funders, bring this technology and show that it is a major milestone and a step forward to realistically bringing this to both other locations like Sao Tome and Principe, but also Barbados, where we signed a MOU with the Barbados Investment and Development Company to move forward and bring them these technologies as soon as possible. So I think the major difference between what we're doing and what has been done in the past with OTEC and similar technologies is that this demonstration that we're bringing forward in Hawaii and a lot of the research and development that have put into this is mostly privately funded. So this allows us to be kind of quick and mobile, but then also take advantage of that investment to provide benefit and value to other partners like the Global Green Climate Fund, like UNIDO, Horizon Europe, and other partners, so that we can then take that basic technology and expand it to everyone who needs it across the SIDS and the large ocean developing states. So as we continue to work forward on this, we look forward to kind of sharing our updates and progress and make this available for scale up to projects across Asia Pacific region and abroad as soon as possible. So I'm going to keep it really short. I'm sorry for the kind of quick run through there, but I know we're running out of time. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ben. I have so many follow-up questions, but I'm gonna just keep it going along, and maybe if we have a minute or two at the end, I'll come back to you. But thanks so much for sharing your work at Global OPTEC, and also great to learn that you're also working or starting to work with small islands like Sao Tome and Principe and Barbados, as you mentioned. So thanks for sharing that. So we'll turn out to our last speaker. And really interesting as well to have a perspective from an island government in this case that's actively working to scale renewable energy. And I'm pleased to turn to Mr. Akram Wahid from the Ministry of Climate Change, Environment and Energy in the Maldives for his presentation. Over to you, Akram.
Thank you, Damien. I'm just going to load up my presentation. Yeah, I hope everyone can see it.
Sure. Yep, we see it. Thank you.
Right. Thanks. So I guess I'm also a bit short of time, so I'll run through this real quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards or even through my email. So just to give a bit of a quick intro, I'm currently working as an energy specialist and a project manager with the Ministry of Environment. I'm overseeing a renewable energy project called Aspire and Arise, supported by the World Bank. And this project is very much focused on one thing, which is de-risking private investments. So just to give a bit of a context, Maldives energy sector, we have been seeing rapid increase in fossil fuel consumption. So now by 2023, we have about 800 tons imported annually, and this the 2024 records is now close to about 1 million tons. So majority of that is like 80% is like diesel, out of which half of that is used for electricity production. So this always have been a growing concern because there's quite a lot of subsidies spent on um, uh, uh, controlling the electricity prices, which is a budgetary burden to the government. And so with that, Maldives had been working for quite some time to increase its renewable energy. And with the most recent government, we now have a target of 33% of renewable energy by 2028. Of course, this is quite ambitious, and we are currently trying to roll out bigger and bigger projects, which I'll come to the pipeline in the next slides. So now as of 2025, we have about 110 megawatts of renewable energy installed, about probably 95% would that be solar PV, and there are a couple of waste to energy plants. So when we look at the renewable, again, it's mainly the solar PV, which is now scaling up. So we do have like 3 different routes. One is the public sector investments, mostly it's utility scale. When we have private investments, which are purely private, it can be private-public partnerships, and there are also smaller scale private players as well. And then, of course, we do have the net metering system, which is more targeted towards the domestic households. So as I mentioned, I'm currently managing the Aspire and Arise project. So Aspire stands for Accelerating Sustainable Private Investment in Renewable Energy, and Arise is Accelerating Renewable Integration and Sustainable Energy. It's a bit of a fancy acronym, but basically the idea is to mobilize private capital. So how we do that is through providing a risk mitigation facility. So if you look at the diagram here, so how we operate is we first try to work out for group islands and then develop sub projects with a reasonable PV capacity. And then after we develop that, we tender that out. And then once a private developer is selected through competitive bidding, international competitive bidding, a PPA is signed, and but together with the PPA, there is also this risk mitigation package that will be integrated into the agreement framework. So just like to highlight the risk mitigation tools that is being used in the project is one of that is tariff buy down. So basically, it's a certain amount of capital offset for the developer to reduce their capital costs. This is particularly useful where there are in remote areas where investments can be very expensive due to new additional infrastructure development, such as transmission networks. And then we have the escrow facility, which is essentially cushioning any short-term payment delays during the PPA term. Typically, we have 6 months of invoices that are deposited in an escrow account. And then we have also the termination risk coverage, which is the coverage in cases of termination. We did facilitate that directly through the project in the first sub project, but I mean right now we are working with MEGA to provide that risk coverage support. And then of course, site security is not directly part of the financing package as such, but it is more of like a guarantee provided by the government. Although it's not officially part of it, I would argue that this is a really important part of the risk mitigation, because without the site, there would not be any project. So that's in summary what's the risk mitigation package looks like. I'll be happy to answer any additional questions around it later. So just to give a quick overview of this pipeline here. So this is the pipeline we had originally for the Aspire and Arise project. So out of this, actually the 2010 one is not actually part of the project, but from 2017 onwards, we do have a number of sub-projects that have been rolled out. So out of this, from 2017 to 2022, so this has grown from 1.5 to 11 megawatts. And then 2026, we have already have total of 25 megawatts already in the tender state. This is actually a 10 megawatt floating PV package and tender, and then a ground mounted 15 megawatt tender. So and also further, we are still in planning stages of another 15 megawatt in the pipeline, but that's yet to come, and the financing is yet to come on that. So just one of the key highlights I'd like to note here is there's been exponential growth for sure, even just within our project, and we do have we do have like rooftop-based systems, land-based systems, and now we're trying to move to floating PV. Of course, one of the major constraints is the land, and this is how we're trying to really address this constraint. And in also highlighting on the tariff, the first tender we got 21 cents per kilowatt hour, and then now with the phase 3 with this 11 megawatt, now we have gone down up to 9.88 cents per kilowatt hour. So this is like a really major achievement for a small island like ours. So, and we are building on this experience to further work on larger scale projects as well. So moving forward, we do have also new interventions considered. One is ocean technologies, particularly wave and currents as well. And also we are trying to see how electrical vehicle infrastructure can be integrated and tied that up with renewables to sort of, further reduce the emissions and fossil fuel consumptions in the transport sector. Recalling, I mentioned in my first slide that half of the diesel actually goes to the transport sector, including vessels. So there are also new initiatives which are not currently in this pipeline, but in general government's pipeline of about another 100 megawatts that is currently under like initial stages. So I think one of the key important elements just to like to highlight here in terms of how we really approach to like make sure we have sufficient number of bidders and how we want to increase the responsiveness of bidders, as well as also ensuring that even before they bid, the developers have a good idea of what they are facing and how much of cost they would really incur. So and this is actually when it comes to risk mitigation, these are still key parts of how we prepare for these sub projects and how we roll out. So I think one of the most important part is the standardized agreement. So beyond the power purchasing agreement, in order to deliver this risk mitigation tool, we have other agreements like site agreements, implementation agreement, escrow agreement, and so on. So all of these are generally standardized, and this is offered to the developer even at the bidding stage, so that they're aware what are the sort of risks. And I think another important part is, I think with other speakers also highlighted, is this sizing and how much of and the scaling and how much of this capacity is really attractive for private developers. So we found that typically this would be useful if we have in the range of at least a couple of megawatts. Right now we are developing sub project that's in the range of like 10 to 15 megawatts. But we hope to further scale that up in the next developments. And another important consideration is considering we are small islands just like other SIDS. There's always space constraints, so designing and optimizing the concepts, even at the concept level before tendering, that's a really important part in order to make sure the land is utilized properly and there's minimal obstruction in the use of the land. And of course, technical feasibilities and assessments are quite critical because if there's no feasible project, nobody would be investing it. And also ENS assessment, environmental and social assessment are quite critical in order to gain the trust of the community, especially of remote islands. And also packing everything together in one package is like really important when we deliver as much as information that is possible for the developers. And of course, we try to deliver these things through market sounding exercises, through online forums, investor forums. We hold physically, periodically, every 2 or every 3 years or so, depending on the need. So that's more or less our approach. So referring to the sub-projects that we have completed before, I'm just like to also share some of the images. So this is our first sub-project that was delivered 1.5 megawatts on the rooftop systems. These are social housing units. And then this is a 5 megawatt. It is a phase 2, the 5 megawatt plant, which is a canopy-based structure. So again, here we're trying to ensure the space is not obstructed and you're able to utilize that. So this can be used as walkways, and at least here it can be used as walkways. And also we do have PV installations now ongoing in under phase 3, which is now mostly completed. So these structures can be used in various ways to including like this is basically acts as a shade, and this can be used as waiting areas for parking, or councils can organize events or food stalls there, so people can come in during break time or during the night time, or even during the daytime as well. So basically the idea is to utilize the land in a way that it adds value. And we also do add a little bit of there's also a bit of financial incentive also to utilize the land. There's a nominal fee that will be paid by the developer under the site agreement to the councils or the landowner in order to make sure they are receptive in using their land, right? So these are, I think, in broadly, some of the key important aspects regarding the project development, how it's rolled out, and how private sector can really play an important role in like scaling up renewable energy, because with just public sector financing or donors, it is not enough to get to the speed that we really want, because our energy demand keeps growing annually at an average of like 11 to 12%. So if we are not catching up on that, we will always be behind, and the renewable fraction will keep on decreasing if we don't keep up with that space. So with that, I think that's my last slide. So if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch. You have my contact details there, and I'll also share this presentation after the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Akram. That was really interesting to see that partnership between the World Bank and, of course, the government of the Maldives, sort of how it all came together through the Aspire and Arise project. And also, I think you mentioned also the importance of the role that the private sector plays in sort of helping to scale up a lot of the financing that's needed. And for me personally, the pictures that you showed at the end of those the solar cells there, it's great to see, to visualize how these projects sort of come to life and contribute to local communities. We're going to be, as I mentioned at the start, we're going to be in the Maldives next year for the SIDS Global Business Network Forum that our office is organizing together with the government of the Maldives, and hopefully we also get to see some of those projects on the ground. So thank you very much, everyone. I know we're far out of time, and our office is also involved in in organizing the larger dialogue that's happening. It's starting in 9 minutes now. So some of our colleagues have rushed down there, and I'll join them shortly. We don't have so much time now for questions, but I think maybe just a quick one to Ben. There was one in the chat asking for the status of the Sao Tome and Principe project, if you wanted to quickly address that.
Sure, I kind of stumbled through as I shortened my presentation remarks. So for Sao Tome and Principe, we've done essentially what's equivalent to pre-feasibility studies, identifying the potential. Yes, definitely, there's great potential for OTEC there. Next step is more detailed studies, which require, unfortunately, funding that wasn't available immediately. So we're still working with the government to look at the next steps, but as we do that, we're not stopping. We're moving forward with proving technology, de-risking, and so that we can bring this technology forward when it's ready and when we can do additional detailed studies with them as well. And so currently it's going forward, but we're also kind of focusing directly with this technology development and moving that as forward quickly as forward, but without a direct cost to Sao Tome and Principe either.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ben. So colleagues, I'm going to have to wrap it up. Apologies for rushing the conclusion of the webinar, but this is certainly not a one-off. This very much feeds into our ongoing work under the SIDS Global Business Network and our preparations for the forum next year. Dates are not tied yet, but we're looking at the first week of August next year in 2026. And certainly renewable energy, the blue economy, as well as sustainable tourism will be sort of really key focus areas for that forum. So on behalf of OHRLS and IRENA, I'd like to warmly thank all of our speakers, Wayne Archibald, Ben Martin, Kieran St. Omer, and Akram Wahid, as well as Nadia Mohammed, who set the scene-setting presentation earlier, and all of you who've stuck around with us, and also for the questions that were posed. Please do get in touch. You have my email because I've been spamming your emails over the last couple of weeks. So if you have any questions for the speakers and you want to get any more detailed information, please do reach out, and I can also reach out to the speakers to answer any questions that you might have. So thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to working with everybody, especially in this field, in the renewable energy sector, as well as others. And hopefully we get to see you in the Maldives next year for the SIDS Global Business Network Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you.